It is mailbag time here on the Broncos Breakdown. I'm answering questions that came in during our live show, which airs every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Mountain Time. So let's start off with our first question on today's mailbag, coming in from Pineapple. Do you think Sean Payton is interested in getting a dual running back system like Reggie Bush and Deuce McAllister? Pineapple, very good question. If you go off of Sean Payton's comments at the end of last year, he said, yeah, we're probably not going to be looking for a bell cow back. I'm paraphrasing, more like a committee backfield, right? So that's what he's always done in New Orleans. He had that with these two players like you mentioned. He had it with Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara. Now, towards the end of Ingram's time, Kamara was just too good to not have on the field more often. So Payton has found success in those dual system running backs, but if Ashton Jeanty or Omarion Hampton just catches his attention to the point of this is a guy that I'm head over heels in love with and is going to transcend my offense and be the last missing puzzle piece, I don't expect him to just put him on the sideline because in New Orleans he did that in 2006. You know what I mean? So I think there's a good chance of that happening, but I think it's just going to be very dependent on who they get in the draft. And once I have that name, Pineapple, I'll have a much better answer for you. I'm just existing. What about a trade up for Tyler Warren? No, and the reason being is you don't often see trade ups for tight ends. If you're giving up draft capital, you got to kind of ask yourself, hey, what's more valuable? Say Tyler Warren at 10, right? Or Omarion Hampton at 20 and next year's 25th overall pick. For a certain position, the answer might be getting up to 10. For tight end, man, you do not see teams trade up very often for tight ends. It's just about the impact they can have on a game that warrants them being worth the draft pick or 2 or 3 draft picks. So I don't expect Denver to move up for Warren, especially with the Ingram signing. I think it just gives them the flexibility to go, we don't have to make this trade up for a guy like Warren because we have something in Ingram to hold us over for the next year or two. And at that point, we can find our next tight end in the future without giving up multiple draft picks for one player. Danny, if Denver delivers a top 3 defense next year, does Vance Joseph get a head coaching job in 2026? I'm going to go with unlikely for a few reasons. One, in the NFL, it's not easy to get second chances. It's not the NBA. Like, the NBA loves retreads of coaches. NFL does not operate the same way. If you are going to get a second chance, 2 things have to be, checked. One, more than likely have to be an offensive guy. Every once in a while, you get a Dan Quinn who got a second chance, but look how long it took him in Dallas before he eventually took that second chance. For Vance Joseph, I don't think they're going to look at 2 good years of work and say, that's enough, I've seen everything I want to see, let's bring him back into head coaching. I think it's going to take a little bit longer than that. So I would say even with a good year in 2025, he's still going to be the DC in 2026. It could be a great year. It's just not common for second chances, and especially for defensive coaches. Aiden, go back to the last one for a moment. Remember Raheem Morris? He was the Buccaneers head coach. You saw how long it took him to get a second chance to be the Falcons head coach? Well over a decade. Okay. Sorry, Danny. Sorry. Aiden, back to you. Yes. The 6th round, Aiden. I do not have strong opinions on 6th round draft picks. I feel like I would be BSing you a little bit if I was like, this would be a disaster of a pick. So, sure, why not? Manny G. Do you think Coach would trade out of the 1st round to get more picks if there is no one there that he likes/wants? Sean Payton, fun fact, has never traded back in the 1st round of the NFL draft throughout his time in New Orleans. I don't think anyone's going to call up for pick 20. This is a draft class that is a little bit light on 1st round grades. Most draft classes have around 20, maybe like 17 to 22. This has more like, depending on who you ask, 13 to 16. So why would a team give up multiple draft picks to get up to 20 and get a round 2 graded player when they could have just taken an extra guy in round 2 along with their original first round pick? So I don't think Denver's finding anyone looking to trade up with them. $5 super chat coming in from Bulwark all the way in Australia. I don't see a negative to trading up, but with that being said, there are plenty of draft prospects for Denver. I think our first will be at 23 to 27 in 2026. Bulwark raises a great point, which he's building off of a video I put out already on the channel about Denver trading up for Ashton Jeanty. Go watch that for more context. In that trade idea, could you throw the trade idea really quick, Moose, please? In that trade idea with the Panthers, where Denver goes from 20 to 8, it included a future first-round draft pick. I challenge everyone, whenever we talk about giving up future first-round draft picks, to think, where is that going to be in round 1? When the Bears made the deal with Carolina for Bryce Young, I think a big part of the motivating factor was, I think the Panthers might stink. And that first-round pick next year could be early. It wasn't early. It was just first overall, and it got them Caleb Williams. So, if you're Denver, you got to factor in, okay, sure, future first sounds like a lot, but if we are going to be better than last year, the floor is 20. And we'd rather have the 20th and the 25th overall pick, as Bulwark puts it, or the 8th, which is what I suggested with the Panthers trade. I'd rather have the 8th. So, to round out your question here, there are plenty of draft prospects for Denver. Yeah, if they can't make a move up, I mean, it takes 2 to trade. Panthers could easily go, no thanks, hang up. Same for every other team that Denver calls. Or the Raiders just take Jeanty at 6, and they never get the chance to move up anyway. So, I'm on board with the trade up, but certain things need to fall in place for it to happen. Corey. At what pick do you think Jeanty would have to fall in order for Payton to trade up? Can we look at the NFL draft order? Corey, this is a very good question. Let's go through just 1 through 16, because I'd be a little surprised if he was there at 17, at which point it'd be a no-brainer with the Bengals, I think, to trade up. So reviewing the 1 through 8 draft order here, coming up in less than 2 weeks at this point right now, Jeanty is not going to go 1 through 4. Jacksonville, I don't think so. Maybe it's the Jags. They're unpredictable at times, but I don't believe so. They've been, by they, I mean every single person with a mock draft simulator has been sending Jeanty to the Raiders. At this point, it's kind of reminded me of last year when every single mock draft, and I mean every single one, had Atlanta taking Dallas Turner. That didn't happen. It's almost like there's too much smoke around Jeanty to the Raiders. So if Jeanty were to fall past the Raiders because they feel that they should build up their offensive line in round 1 with Will Campbell or Armand Membu, and then go with Caleb Johnson or one of the Ohio State backs in day 2, that could be a better path for them moving forward to repair that run game. So if Jeanty gets past the Raiders at 6, I think Payton would try and start making calls with the Jets at 7. 7, 8, 9, his old team, New Orleans. If Shedeur Sanders is taken at that point, I could see the Saints being open to trading back. But also, remember earlier I said, fun fact, Sean Payton has never traded back in round 1. That's also true for Saints GM Mickey Loomis. So someone would have to end their drought right there. Ramon Rivera, what do you think Marvin Mims' stat line looks like next year? Let me answer this question, and we'll tell everyone about our sponsor today, Moose. Marvin Mims, I don't remember his stats last year. I think he had 600 yards and 5 touchdowns. Marvin Mims last year, 503 yards and 6 touchdowns. I'm going to say Marvin Mims this upcoming year is 750 yards and 7 touchdowns. And also, maybe more importantly, from 39 receptions to 55. I think he just sees more targets, more volume, more yards, and touchdowns can be a bit fluky, right? Sometimes you get pushed out of bounds at the 1-yard line. Calvin Johnson fantasy owners know that all too well. So I won't stake my flag in the ground when it comes to touchdowns for a player, but receptions, I'm going to say 50 to 55. Yards, I'm going to say a number that starts with a 7. Before we look at the other questions on today's mailbag, quick shout out to our friends over at Game Time. Game Time makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to the first pitch. With killer last minute deals, all in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Last minute deals over at Game Time, you can save up to 60% off buying last minute for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Plus, there's Game Time ticket coverage. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. So if you want to go to a Rockies game as the weather hopefully warms up soon, or a Nuggets game, or an Avs game, including a playoff game, take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHATSPORTS for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHAT Sports for $20 off. I put all that information in the comments and description of today's video. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Moving on to our next question, coming in from Pineapple via Super Chat. I love our family. Oh, appreciate that, Pineapple. More of a statement than a question, but I love you too. Thank you so much for tuning in. Moving on to our next one from Desire Best. Trade up for Warren or Jeanty. If not, take best player available. Could take Caleb Johnson, Travion Henderson, or Quinshon Judkins in round 2. I would trade up for Jeanty. The thing about best player available is it always sounds good in theory, and I'm a proponent of it. If I said best player available at 20 was a defensive end, would you do that then? Let me ask you this. Would you rather take Omarion Hampton or Michael Williams, defensive end from Georgia? I think you'd probably say Hampton. But if you're going best player available, it could be Gray Zabel, the offensive lineman from North Dakota. It could be, well, no, but you could find best player available at spots you really don't need help at. So, like, how about this one? Safety, Nicky Minwari or Malachi Starks. Would you take one of those two guys over a running back or Colston Loveland or a receiver? Probably not, is my guess. All right, Desire Best, thank you so much for your question. Moving on to our next one here. Phoenix. I love Ted McMillan because next year he could be our wide receiver 1 if we don't extend Sutton, and he is amazing in the slot. I do agree with the train of thought of, hey, Sutton's going into the final year of his contract. I personally like to look at drafts, not about replacing that year's vacancies, but next year's vacancies. Because if you take a receiver, let's say you have a, like this year, for example, or backtrack. Let's say you have a huge need for wide receiver, okay? Take the receiver, and you're hoping and banking that player as a rookie can be an immediate contributor. And if they don't, I feel like the pressure starts to build up and expectations are disappointed, okay? Whereas if you go into the approach where Phoenix has laid out, which is you take McMillan this year so that next year he can replace Sutton, that's a good way of thinking, of replacing guys in the future, not this year. That way you're never banking on a rookie to have a huge role in year 1. Now, despite everything I just said, I just disagree with you about the profile for McMillan. Like, I don't think he's going to be amazing, and he's not my number 1 receiver in this class. I'd rather have Matthew Golden, but overall, this receiver class is a little disappointing in my eyes. Mark Baker. DJ Jones is 30 years old. We need a replacement before we repeat our right tackle problem at nose tackle. What would it take to trade up for Kenneth Grant? One, I do love the reference to the right tackle position. Like, never again will they just have a different week one. It's kind of like a base, like the Rockies, just like constant turnover at that position every single year. Week 1 starting lineup at right tackle. But McGlinchey offers some long-term consistency. But as for replacing him, they just gave him a 3-year contract. So I don't think it's that much of a pressing need. I did not see eye to eye on the 3-year deal for a 30-year-old who was good last year, but like, I don't know if he was 3-year, $35 million good. As for trading up for Kenneth Grant, I don't think you'd trade up for him. I think the inconsistency on tape is going to ding him a little bit. Plus, when you play at 330 pounds like he does, there are teams that are going to be concerned about your durability to play a decent amount of snaps. And in round one, you're looking for someone who can be on the field, not a rotational guy. Now, defensive lineman's always going to have some level of a rotation, but if you're going after like a pass rusher, right? Well, if this is a pass rusher who's only good in certain circumstances, like third and long and things like that, then for most of the game, they're not valuable to you. So that's probably not worth a first-round pick. And I wonder with Grant if teams are going to look at that weight and be concerned with, hey, is this a guy that can play 50 to 60% of snaps? Because if he's only going to be a 35 to 40% guy, that's not going to warrant a first-round pick. We need more snaps from him to use a high draft pick on him. So I don't think you'd have to trade up for him at all anyway. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's show. Thank you all so much for tuning in. If you have not yet, do me and yourself a big favor. Scroll on down and click that sub button.